Hey there, marvelous mom. Welcome to week 2 of this Flourish in Friendship series. And if you missed week 1, you might want to go back and listen to it. It's where Marnie Collier and I sit down and have just a wonderful reminiscent time about the good, the challenging, and the restorative nature of our friendship that has endured for over 20 years. And so you will be encouraged, strengthened, and you will fall in love with Marnie. And as promised on that episode, we're going to unpack a question at the beginning of each one of these episodes that you have written in with. Today's question: why do friendships that were once so life giving start to feel so draining? And what do I do about that?
Hmm. Well, I think the first thing is to notice. Notice that it's draining. Pay attention to the drain, to the feeling of that, and come to the Lord with that, first of all. I'm feeling drained, Lord, and I need your wisdom. And begin right away inviting Holy Spirit to start teaching you, because He's the one that leads us into all truth. Sometimes we can feel drained because we have too much on our plate, and it isn't about the other person at all. Sometimes we can feel drained because another person's needs are feeling overwhelming to us, and it's difficult for us to have a healthy boundary, and we're feeling drawn into what they're going through by a sense of compassion or empathy. A lot of times, a feeling of being drained will be an indicator that we need a boundary of some kind. Maybe we'll need a boundary as to how much we can actually give in a situation. Sometimes we'll need a boundary as to what belongs to whom. Maybe the emotions that we're feeling in our friend, we need to keep on recognizing that's the friend's emotions that belongs to them.
So I hear you. I agree. We've been told John 15:13, greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. So boundaries and laying down your life for your friends, how do you manage both of those realities?
That's such a good question. Well, I think that first and foremost, when Jesus is asking us to lay down our lives for our friends, we need to recognize that He and He alone is the one sacrificial lamb for all mankind. I will never be the sacrificial lamb. He deserves all the honor as the lamb. Laying down our life for a friend, it means sacrifice, but it doesn't mean losing your whole being into that friendship. It's going to be inconvenient at times. It's going to be messy at times. It's going to be uncomfortable at times. And laying down your life may mean honesty, it might mean vulnerability, it might be feeling with, it might be refusal to put up a wall, but it does not mean that you are giving up your whole being so that the relationship can drain you dry.
Let me start with a confession. A few years ago, I found myself standing in the middle of a room filled with amazing women. We were smiling, making small talk, catching up, but I had this ache that I couldn't explain. I'd recently moved to a new city, gotten married, left the nonprofit I'd poured my heart into, and survived COVID's isolating grip. From the outside, my life looked full, but inside, I was feeling the sharp sting of loneliness. I didn't know it at the time. It didn't make sense. I had people around me, texts, likes, meeting, mom groups, but something essential was missing. I even shared it with my husband, and he had the same thought I did. How could I, Misty Hughes, celebration coach, dream champion, encourager, lover of Jesus, lover of people, be lonely? Have you ever felt like that? Like you're surrounded, but still alone? You're not the only one. In fact, in 2021, 12% of U.S. adults said they didn't have a single close friend. That number was only 3% in 1990. One researcher even found that poor quality friendships are more dangerous to your health than smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Wow. So, why is this happening to us? And what can we do about it? That's what we're tackling in this episode and throughout the next 4-part series. Because here's the truth. You were created for connection. You were designed to flourish in friendship. During this series, I will take you on the journey of exploring friendships with me through the questions I ask and the stories that I tell, believing that as we travel together through the mysterious, often bumpy road of women's friendships, we'll all be empowered in new ways to stop the epidemic of loneliness. So stick with me, sister. I promise this will be the soul reset you didn't know you needed. Welcome to Mom2Mom Mentoring, the podcast for kingdom-minded moms like you who are juggling careers, calling, and carpool, and still craving peace, purpose, and deep connection with Jesus. I'm your host, Misty Hughes, a certified leadership coach, speaker, podcast host, and founder of Lead Her Ministries. I serve overwhelmed Christian moms who are trying to live, lead, and love with intention in every area of life and feel like they're failing in every area of life. Today's show is for you if you've ever said or thought, I have people, but I still feel alone. Or I'm strong for everyone else, but who's strong for me? If this episode resonates with you at any point, please leave a review. It helps other women like you find these conversations so they know they're not alone. And don't forget, if you're ready to rediscover who you are and realign your life with what matters most, I have a Discover coaching program, and it's open. The journey is especially powerful if you've realized, like I did, that your ache for connection is really an invitation to grow in your capacity to love. You'll find the link to schedule a free clarity call in the show notes. Okay, Mama, grab that coffee off the counter, or maybe it's the half-eaten granola bar from your toddler's plate, and throw in your earbuds while folding that mountain of laundry, waiting for the school pickup line, or sneaking in a solo grocery trip. Let's have a real heart-to-heart about friendship today. Let's be real. Friendship in adulthood isn't as easy as it used to be. Motherhood is consuming. Careers are demanding. Family life stretches you thin. Friendships don't just happen anymore. They take intention. What makes it even harder is that no one ever taught us how to be good at friendship. Simon Sinek says, there are entire industries to help us be better leaders, better parents, better partners, but nothing to help us be better friends. Even though God created us for relationship, Genesis 2:18 points that out when it says, it is not good for man to be alone. We often try to handle life alone, or we expect friendships to just fall into place. We have this fairy tale dream that in the midst of diapers, dishes, and deadlines, our BFF will knock on the door with a latte and say, hi, I'm your new best friend. But in reality, friendship takes time, vulnerability, and intentionality. Our grandmothers had front porches and church potlucks. They had roots and rhythms and rituals that made friendship natural. Spaces where laughter lingered in the air and casseroles communicated that they really cared for one another. We have garage doors and Google calendars where moments are scheduled and fleeting. But friendship still calls us to slow down and be present, to create space for connection, even in a disconnected world. Building friendships in today's world is possible, but Mom, you have to work at it. Our hyper-connected digital world is starving us for real life connection. If you'd like to understand the art of connection better, listen to podcast episode 56, Why Christian Marriages Struggle Even When You Keep Talking. Now, don't let the title fool you. This episode is all about connection, and in it, you'll find some action steps to help you build connection, starting with connecting with God and yourself. During this 4-part series, I've asked women to write in with their friendship questions. So we're going to tackle a question in each podcast. Today's question: why do I feel lonely when I have people in my life? Mom, proximity isn't intimacy. Being surrounded isn't the same as being seen. Loneliness isn't always about being alone. It's about not feeling known. Mother Teresa once said, loneliness and the feeling of being uncared for is the greatest poverty. That poverty is growing. Wanting to be known, seen, loved is as old as mankind. But there are current trends and challenges of our modern age that are hindering our ability to be known, seen, and loved. Let's look at some of those. Social isolation is rising across every age group. Smartphones, social media, and post-pandemic habits are pulling us apart. The COVID pandemic exacerbated an already existing trend towards social isolation. But there are other reasons. Did you know that moms today are spending twice as much time with their kids than previous generations? Well, this is wonderful. If you pause, you realize we all have only 24 hours in a day. And if you're spending more time with your child, that leaves less time for other things. If you're working full or part-time in ministry, trying to maintain a healthy, thriving relationship with your spouse, well, it all leaves little time for friendship. Also, more women are marrying later and moving more often, making long-term roots harder. Couples and families have moved away from the ongoing social institutions, such as church, clubs, even staying at the same work for years. Americans are now more likely to make friends at work than in any other way, but they're also changing jobs more than ever. You do the math on that one. We've replaced the deep and slow work of building real relationships with convenience, comparison, or silence. But we were never meant to walk alone. You don't have to look very far in the Word of God to see how important relationship is to the Father. Genesis tells us it is not good for man to be alone. Ecclesiastes 4 says, two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if one falls, one will lift the other up. Proverbs 27, 9 and 10 tells us oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away. You see, God is not only pointing out that relationship, friendship, community are important. He's also telling us the kind of friends to look for, to surround ourselves with. Proverbs are full of the kind of friends we should pursue. Proverbs 13:20 tells us, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. This is one of the many things that are forming us into the women that we are. I used to tell my kids, I can tell a lot about the state of your soul by who your friends are. The same is true of you. In a discipleship study, called Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. There's a formation audit that explores 6 areas that are shaping your life. The first, friends and family. So take a minute, pause, and reflect. What kind of people are shaping your life? Who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? Mom, knowing these truths does not remove the ache, but these truths give us some things to consider. Understanding our relationships is a step, but beloved, to sit in the ache, giving in to despair and discouragement without asking the hard questions, that's just not God's heart for you. Over a decade ago, when my youngest son launched into adulthood, I was deep in physical pain, laid up in bed. I was spiritually dry and isolated. I saw a desert before me, and I sensed Jesus whisper, "Will you walk with me here?" John 6 came alive. It tells us when others left Jesus, he turned and asked the disciples, "Will you leave too?" And Peter said, "Lord, where would we go? You have the words of eternal life." That verse anchored me to take the steps into that season with Jesus. It was during that time that I found a book by Elizabeth Elliot, The Path of Loneliness. She wrote, "Our loneliness cannot always be fixed, but it can always be accepted as the will of God for now, and that turns it into something beautiful." Jesus wasn't trying to deliver me from loneliness, quite the opposite. It seemed that he was inviting me into this desert of loneliness. As I took each reluctant step, I remembered that the desert places are typically where the Father takes us for lasting transformation. I wanted to be like the Shulamite from chapter 7 of Song of Solomon. It says she comes out of the desert leaning on her beloved. It was in the desert that she learned to lean on him and not her own understanding. Well, that pain became a place of transformation. The desert wasn't punishment, it was an invitation to develop my ability to lean on Jesus in a new and deeper way. Fast forward, post COVID, in a new city, remarried, launching Lead Her Ministries, I found myself surrounded by people, but feeling alone, feeling that ache again. And this time, I knew not to run from the ache, but to run to Jesus. I began to explore it with him. I realized I'd let my friendship with Jesus go a bit quiet. I'd poured all my energy into all the new relationships, learning to be a wife after 22 years of singleness, reconnecting with my kids, becoming a stepmom. But Jesus was calling me into a more season, more connection, more intentionality, more love. So we started going on long walks again. I explored new books on friendships of women, and I came across these words of Shasta Nelson. She's the CEO of Girlfriend Circles and author of Friendships Don't Just Happen. She says, loneliness is not about social skills or likability. Loneliness is a signal. It's an invitation to recognize that our hearts have more capacity to love. That made me stop. I realized that God was inviting me yet again. This ache, was it an answer to prayer? See, I have been praying for as long as I can remember. Father, let the love that you love the Son with be in me. It's out of John 17. I thought, maybe this ache, again, wasn't punishment. Maybe it was about sitting and embracing loneliness, or maybe it was preparation. Jesus had been increasing my capacity to love. He had been pouring love into me to love others with. And he was inviting me to recognize this loneliness was really a signal that my capacity for friends had increased. So, you know what I did? I began to evaluate my friendships. I'll talk more about that in episode 3 of this series on women's friendships. I'll also be giving you some tools and maybe tips on becoming an intentional friend. As we bring today's episode to a close, I hope you found hope in the midst of your ache and feel confident and equipped to explore women's friendships with me over the next 4 weeks. I always like to leave you with just one thing to consider as you move through your day or the week. Here's your one thing. Where in your life are you feeling disconnected? And what would it look like to let Jesus fill that gap first? What would it look like to take Jesus by the hand and let him lead you? Jesus is the ultimate friend. He's always faithful, always present, always inviting. And we're going to explore more of what friendship with Jesus looks like and how he turns our paradigm of friendship upside down and inside out. But if this episode stirred something in you, I'd love to talk. If you're longing for deeper connection, clarity in who you are, alignment with who God created you to be, then this is your invitation to take that next step. As you discover who you are empowered to be that kind of friend you are seeking. You can book a free clarity call and we can chat more about it. The links are in the show notes. Are you ready to change the world one heart at a time? Let's end this loneliness epidemic. You can help by leaving a review, following the podcast, and sharing it with a friend. Next week on the podcast, we are diving into friendship according to Jesus. We'll unpack how Jesus models real, radical friendship and why it's the key to healing your heart. Until then, remember, you are made for connection. You are created to shine. And when you shine, you give others permission to shine too.